All right, coming to you live from DevOps Days 2022. Oh my gosh, that's right. We've been on hiatus for COVID for 2 years, and I don't even know what day it is. So I'm sitting here with the godfather of DevOps, Patrick Debois. Patrick, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Yeah.
So you've seen this DevOps things from ground zero. What would you, if someone were starting out in DevOps today, what would be the advice that you'd give them? What are some of the things that they should be keeping in the back of their minds as far as goals, things to look out for, etc.?
Yeah, it's a good question. People have asked me how to get started, how to, when they got started, how to move on, and then when they moved on, like what to do next. And then I think my personal answer is pretty simple. I'm a systems thinker, and I always say, like, find the next bottleneck that's worth solving. And it could be that your bottleneck somewhere in, I want to get faster to production. So you can improve either on your deployment scripts or on your servers or your code, or it could be like, I'm paged every night and I need to solve something about my monitoring. And they're all great things. And then while you're experiencing, solving one bottleneck to another, I think what you should be aware of is that once you do something, your bottleneck might change. So don't go all in on I'm going to spend 3 years fixing my monitoring system, 3 years on doing my automation. So I made a comparison about a barrel of water. They are like the sides, right? And if you want to stop the leaking of the water going on, it doesn't make sense to build one side completely up. So it's like going around and every time reevaluating what's my bottleneck. You might at certain points think okay, all this, what people think about automation, monitoring, and so on. Sometimes, and it's something I learned, sometimes your bottleneck is outside of your control. It could be in the hiring. It could be in the way people are compensated. And it creates another dynamic. It might be the way sales and marketing is pitching your product, that they can't sell it, so there's more money, so you can't hire people, and they don't get the good money. So you see, it's a chain of things.
Right, which I think gets back to your point, which you've talked about before, which is the idea of putting it in the context of the greater business goals.
Yes, exactly.
And whereas what tends to happen is what you've called technical gravity, is we always want to go back to the tools because it's easy to understand. So how would you recommend people how would they keep their mind straight on the goal, as it were, as opposed to the tools?
Yeah. Well, again, coming back to what's your bottleneck? And if you apply a new tool, or you want to try something out, figure out why am I doing this? What am I improving with this? And it's okay if you just say the improvement is I just want to learn a new tool, which is totally valid. And the answer might also be well, this is a cool tool, but it's not improving that much, and I need to solve something else. So there's this the concept of boring tools. They just work, and it's all great. So you don't need to do what people call resume-driven development, where you're always doing having to do the next big thing. There's nothing wrong about learning the next big thing, but the whole concept is you need to build up a kind of a tool chain, right? About different things you need to apply in different situations, and that's kind of the learning curve. How you go through the tools, when to apply, when it's useful, when it has effect, and that's kind of how I think about it. I already mentioned that your bottleneck might change, and that's not the only thing that would change. The industry might change, the way people think about problems will change. Over the years, people have different concepts. The complexity has increased, and then the old solutions might not be the best fit for the new thing. And that's kind of a continuous rat race. Okay, are we still doing the right thing? When people moved to cloud, they were applying the concept of traditional virtual machines on the cluster, and then
It's
if you're
like
like,
when railroad tracks
yeah.
came, they put the horse and buggy on the railroad
exactly,
tracks.
exactly. So it's kind of like reframing, rethinking, and it's not, I know a lot of people say, oh, it's not about the tools, but me personally, I believe there's kind of this symbiosis in sometimes a new tool can help you bootstrap new behavior if you're doing it right. Sometimes it has the opposite effect, obviously, but there's definitely a relation, and kind of, unfortunately, in our industry, it will never end, right?
Right, right.
Although if you have like gray hair like me, you go in circles, it's like, oh, aren't we doing the cloud thing and getting back to the mainframe somehow?
3270, yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
cool, right? And okay, that's me being old, but but there's shuffling around complexity in many cases, and I think it's one of the challenges we have right now. Tools exploding, new tools, more IDs, and we've been in the cloud world now for cloud native. Kubernetes came around, and that's what kind of makes it interesting is that we keep having to challenge ourselves from our beliefs that what we did 5 years ago is still the right way to go.
Right.
And it's easy for technology to keep pulling us in. It's like, we finally managed to get this tool working.
Right.
Like another migration.
Well, then you get technical debt because you get all these new toys, and it's like, Christmas comes and you get more toys, and it's
Yeah. But I get, it doesn't care what programming language, it doesn't care what tool. Like if you're passionate, you're hitting the right problem with your tool, by all means go for it. And I know it's generic advice, so it's like, a consultant says it depends.
Right, exactly. but it does. Right?
But it does, right? And nobody's gonna do the thinking for you. Like your situation best, your context best, and don't let anybody fool you. Like whatever is the next tool. But please look at it, be critical, and see how that works for you. So.
Yeah, and I think what you said too about is marketing and sales, are they aligned? Because it doesn't help if you're doing this great thing and then they're disconnected. You're disconnected from the business because you're working at cross purposes.
Yeah.
So if you were to pick one thing that's something to look out for in the future of DevOps, some new way of doing things, some new technology, some new way of thinking of it, is there anything that sort of caught your eye?
I think we're still a little bit trying to be in control of the situation. And we're still treating it like we're the masters of puppet that control what goes in the system and so on. I think if you transpose this to nature, trying to frantically control the environment is probably not the right way to scale.
Right.
At a certain point, you need to have a way that system will do parts of this for you, and you become more of a the architect or kind of the person who kind of is escaping the system, then having to run the system itself.
Right.
So you're kind of creating opportunities, you're creating the environment, and I think that's probably going to make us a little bit more sustainable than we're the ones I know there's auto scaling, so but still we want to control what does the auto scaling do, and that's probably emerging behavior that we're tapping into, and it feels like I have to give out of control.
Yes.
And it's the same thing with autonomous systems, autonomous teams. Gonna give control.
Which they say if you love something, let it go, right?
Yeah,
so otherwise you hold it tight, and it's gonna.
I'm a father. Don't try telling kids what to do.
Especially teenagers.
Absolutely, they don't listen, but they'll learn themselves, and you create a safe environment for them to kind of learn that. So, yeah.
Excellent,
yeah.
Patrick Debois. A pleasure as always.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Too. Thanks.